Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News, where the world is once again being run like a fireworks tent next to a gas station, and somehow everybody in charge is holding a lighter. Today we got war, oil prices, constitutional chaos, diplomatic paperwork, election revenge, and a Middle East peace plan that sounds like it was built by a private equity firm after 3 Red Bulls and a vision board. Segment 1. Hormuz toll booths and the oil price tilt-a-whirl. The biggest story today is the sudden scramble to end the US, Israel, and Iran war before the global economy turns into a deep-fried dashboard light. After weeks of bombing, blockades, drone swarms, missile threats, and everybody acting like the Strait of Hormuz is a one-lane bridge behind a county fair, Pakistan helped push a 14-point peace framework onto the table. The White House gave Iran 48 hours to respond, which is diplomatic language for, "We brought paperwork, but we also left the truck running." The deal would pause fighting, reopen the strait, ease blockades, and start a 30-day negotiation window over Iran's nuclear program. That sounds calm, until you remember this whole thing started with explosions, threats, and enough aircraft to make the sky look like a Walmart parking lot on Black Friday. The Strait of Hormuz is the kind of place most folks never think about until gas prices start acting possessed. About 1/5 of global oil and gas shipments normally pass through there. So when Iran shut it down with mines, drones, missiles, permits, and what sounded like a maritime DMV email address, the whole world started sweating through its church clothes. Then America launched Project Freedom to escort ships through, calling it a gift to the world. Which is how you know somebody spent too much time naming military operations and not enough time checking if the plan works. Only 3 commercial ships made it through before the mission got paused, which is not exactly mission accomplished, unless the mission was to prove that global shipping cannot be fixed with a bald eagle sticker and 15,000 stressed-out service members. It was like trying to herd cattle through a fireworks show while yelling, "Relax, we brought helicopters." Segment 2. Peace deals written on a napkin beside a missile launcher. Now the big hope is this 14-point memorandum, which sounds official enough until you realize both sides brought completely different 14-point lists. The US-backed version says Iran pauses uranium enrichment for 12 to 15 years, sends its highly enriched uranium out of the country, agrees to inspections, and eventually gets sanctions relief and reopened trade. Iran's version says stop the war everywhere, lift sanctions immediately, pay reparations, pull US forces out of the region, and let Iran keep a sovereign grip on the strait, while promising not to seek nuclear weapons. That is not a negotiation gap. That is 2 men arguing over a lawnmower when one of them thinks it is a tractor and the other thinks it is a submarine. Pakistan is standing there like the cousin at Thanksgiving, trying to keep Uncle Jerry from throwing mashed potatoes over property lines. The weird part is, the very existence of this deal means everybody knows the fighting has reached the point where even the tough talk started getting expensive. President Donald Trump had been threatening Iran with language so hot it could melt a mailbox, including warnings about obliterating power plants and whole civilizations, which is the kind of thing that makes diplomats age like bananas. Iran's commanders fired back with threats against energy and desalination infrastructure, meaning the whole region was one bad sentence away from turning into a Mad Max utility bill. But beneath all the chest thumping, the grounded truth is simple. Nobody can afford a permanent oil chokehold. Not America, not Iran, not China, not Europe, and definitely not some poor guy in Indiana trying to fill up a pickup with a debit card and a prayer. So now everybody is pretending this peace framework was the plan all along. like a man backing a trailer into a mailbox and saying he meant to test the brakes. Segment 3. Wall Street gets whiplash while regular folks check the pump. The markets reacted to the possible deal like somebody opened a window in a burning Waffle House. Oil prices had been soaring because the war basically shoved a cork into one of the world's most important energy choke points, and traders were pricing every barrel like it came with a rare baseball card inside. Then news of the MOU leaked, and suddenly crude oil fell hard, with WTI dropping toward $90 and Brent sliding below 100. That sounds like relief, but let's not pretend regular folks immediately got a parade at the gas station. The pump never falls as fast as the headline does, because gas prices climb like a squirrel on espresso and come down like a lazy uncle getting out of a recliner. Wall Street, meanwhile, acted strangely comfortable through a lot of this mess, because America has more domestic energy insulation than Europe or China. U.S. energy exports surged, tech stocks held strong, and investors treated global chaos like a clearance sale at the rich people's store. That is the economic frustration right there. If the world catches fire, somebody on television will call it market opportunity, while a family of 4 is doing mental gymnastics over eggs, gas, rent, and whether the check engine light can be ignored until payday. The broader commodity spike had already scared central banks, pushed bond yields higher, and made inflation feel like it had crawled back out of the swamp, wearing a name tag that said, "Remember me?" So when oil dropped on peace hopes, the markets cheered, but regular people still looked at their receipts like they were reading a ransom note from the Kroger aisle. Segment 4. War powers, big threats, and the Constitution in a ditch. Back home, the war has turned into a constitutional bar fight over who actually gets to authorize this kind of thing. The War Powers Resolution says the president is supposed to get congressional authorization within 60 days of introducing forces into hostilities, and that deadline fell on May 1st. President Trump's team argued the clock stopped because there had been a 2-week ceasefire, even though U.S. naval forces were still enforcing a blockade and the whole region was about as peaceful as a raccoon trapped in a bait shop. That is some fancy legal footwork, the kind where somebody steps on your porch, kicks your grill over, and says technically they were just visiting. Legal scholars called it dangerous executive overreach, and you do not need a law degree to understand that a blockade is not exactly a friendship bracelet. Then the rhetoric made everything worse, because nothing calms a constitutional crisis like threatening to erase a civilization on social media. Democrats erupted, with leaders accusing the president of promising war crimes and some lawmakers calling for the 25th Amendment. Now, whether that actually goes anywhere is another story, because Washington loves dramatic language right up until it has to do paperwork. But the backlash shows how far the war has scrambled domestic politics, especially with polls showing major opposition and gas prices turning foreign policy into kitchen table rage. Folks may not follow every naval maneuver, but they understand when a war overseas turns into a $78 fill-up and a president talking like a Bond villain who got locked out of his own golf cart. Segment 5. Midterm revenge rodeo and the loyalty funnel cake. While all that is happening, the 2026 midterm machine is already grinding like a combine full of gravel. In Ohio, Vivek Ramaswamy crushed the Republican governor primary with Trump's endorsement behind him, showing that the GOP base is still locked in tight even while the foreign policy roof is leaking. Senator Sherrod Brown also moved forward on the Democratic side for a major Senate race, setting up another one of those elections where every ad will make America sound like it has 6 minutes left to live. Over in Indiana, Trump-backed challengers reportedly punished Republican state senators who crossed him on redistricting. which tells every elected Republican the same thing: support the plan or get thrown into the primary wood chipper. It is party discipline by cattle prod, except the cattle prod has a social media account and uses all caps. The strange thing is how normal election revenge can look, while the country is juggling war powers, oil shocks, and Middle East diplomacy. Cable news can go from possible regional catastrophe to county-level redistricting drama, so fast it gives your brain neck pain. The political culture has become a carnival where one booth is selling war authorization arguments, another booth is selling gas price blame, and a third booth has somebody yelling about vaccines, hot tubs, and Kid Rock like that explains federal policy. Beneath the absurdity, though, there is a real observation. The war may be unpopular with the public, but within the Republican primary system, Trump's endorsement still works like a golden ticket with teeth. So even when voters are mad about prices and chaos, the party machinery keeps spinning like a tilt-a-whirl operated by a man who failed shop class but owns a whistle. Segment 6, Board of Peace, Beijing Side-Eye, and the billion-dollar clipboard. The Middle East diplomacy does not stop with Iran, because the administration is also pushing this Gaza Board of Peace as a model for reconstruction and regional management. On paper, it is supposed to oversee rebuilding Gaza, demilitarization, stabilization forces, and a technocratic Palestinian body. In practice, it sounds like somebody combined international law with a country club membership application and then handed the clipboard to billionaires, former prime ministers, envoys, and Trump insiders. Long-term membership reportedly requires a massive financial commitment, which makes peace sound less like diplomacy and more like a luxury subscription package. Imagine telling war survivors, "Good news, help is on the way, but first we need to verify your platinum reconstruction tier." And while America is trying to build a pay-to-play peace architecture, China is sliding into the room wearing sensible shoes and carrying a cheaper-looking clipboard. Iran's foreign minister went to Beijing, thanked China for supporting Iran's sovereignty, and talked about a new post-war regional framework. China needs stable oil flows, wants influence in the Middle East, and can present itself as the calm alternative while America swings between threats, blockades, and sudden paperwork. That does not mean China is doing charity. That means China saw the smoke, checked the wind, and started measuring for curtains. Meanwhile, the human rights crisis inside Iran, including the urgent hospitalization of imprisoned Nobel Peace Prize winner Narges Mohammadi, risks getting shoved behind nuclear terms, oil shipments, and great power chess. That is the ugliest part of all this. Governments will negotiate barrels, borders, sanctions, and shipping lanes before they negotiate basic human dignity, because apparently the world runs on crude oil and selective concern. In conclusion, today's news is one giant international pressure cooker with a busted valve. The US and Iran may be inching toward a peace framework, but the whole thing is fragile enough that a bad speech, a rejected clause, or one missile-happy commander could send it right back into the ditch. Oil markets are cheering, regular people are still checking pump prices like they are reading lottery numbers in reverse. Congress is arguing over war powers, Democrats are furious, Republicans are tightening around Trump, and China is quietly setting up a folding chair in the diplomatic gap. The scary part is that everybody involved keeps calling this strategy, when half of it looks like crisis management after somebody knocked over the grill at a family reunion.